Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm excited to have a conversation with a passionate chiropractor who's doing some really interesting things, not in private practice these days, but I'm looking forward to hearing his story, and I think you will enjoy it as well. Joining me today is Dr. Scott Watier. Did I get your name right?
You did. You put the north of the border flair on it, which is where my ancestors originated from. We have Americanized the heck out of it. But I do appreciate the pronunciation because that's truly how it should be said. So thank you for that, because that is not a common practice when people get that right off the bat.
So let's continue and just hear more about who's Dr. Scott. What are you doing these days? Let's take a snapshot of where you're at right now. I know we'll get into your story and how you ended up in the work that you're doing right now, but just give us, the listeners who don't know you, what you're up to. Who is Dr. Scott? What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so we've... Right now, I've got a few different big projects that we're working on from a professional standpoint, but I always like to start with the personal stuff. So I have a wonderful wife. We've been married. We actually got married twice. That's a whole different story, which is a fun thing to tell, but we won't get into that now. But if
we may get into it later, because that just
may get into it later, it may come back up. Yeah, we got married twice, so I like to lead off with that to break the ice. But she is in private practice. She is a ICPA pediatric specific chiropractor half the week. And then the other half the week, she is a full-time mom because we have two little ones, a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. He's bigger than a 2-year-old. He's only 20 months at the time currently, but completely changed my perspective on business and life when Quinn was born 4 years ago, which is kind of how I ended up in the roles that I am now. But yeah, I'm currently recovering from a biceps tendon rupture surgery. So it's been a kind of a pivot as the roller coaster of 2020 went on. Tore it in September, and I've just started now being able to actually strengthen it. So been absolutely lucky and blessed, however you want to word it, to be able to work not in private practice, because that would have been a complete, huge, massive problem and setback potentially. So very lucky that this freak injury happened when most of my day is spent on Zoom calls, consulting, and building out our new business. So I'm working on, I have a partner, Tommy, and I just started a brand new fasting business called Fasting for Life. And our mission there is to bring as many people, pull them out of the matrix of standard medical healthcare when it comes to weight loss resistance, insulin resistance, and diabetes, and show them the path that he and I both took to regain our health and get our life back. And most importantly, become the dad and the husband that we weren't being, living in that other model, trying and searching for answers. So that's one of our main focuses. It's been an incredible 12 months with that business. And then I'm also consulting/partnered for a group of multidisciplinary clinics in the Midwest. We have a location here in Texas, actually traveling here in the near future to a potential new location in Florida. So we're looking to grow that group and really help people, give them an opportunity to address their degenerative spine and joint issues without the standard cortisone injections, pain medications, and eventual surgery. So a really cool group of clinics. I get to use my old skill set from being a structural corrective chiro and, those principles of health and well-being that I practiced and preach for daily, but used to practice and preach in my clinic. I still get to use that knowledge and skill set, but I'm literally not physically in the office seeing hundreds and hundreds of patients a week anymore. So that's where I'm at now. A lot of pokers in the fire, dad, one business, fasting, and then the consulting/partnership in the multidisciplinary clinics.
So many different directions to go from that introduction. Thank you for it. My first is, you mentioned that everything changed when your daughter was born. You want to expand on that a little bit now?
Yeah, sure. Leading up to that is I thought I had everything, kind of in check. I thought I had a handle on life, so to speak. My wife and I got married. We sped up the process, which was the first marriage that we did after a morning shift at my health center here in Katy. Saw about 65 patients that morning. Led a burst training, high intensity workout class, did a doctor's report, and then went home, changed, and met the pastor and his wife at the lake around the corner from the clinic to get married. And then my wife went back to Dallas, is where she lived. And then 2 weeks later, her horse moved to Houston, and then she moved down 2 weeks after that, and we got an apartment and started living together. And then a year later, we had already booked the actual wedding. So really, we just went and had a party in Austin and got married in Hill Country. So at that point, she was in chiropractic school, grinding, 5 a.m. gone, come back to 5, 6 p.m. I was in the clinic 78 hours a week, seeing hundreds and hundreds of patients, just 45 to 65 new patients a month, just grinding, doing screenings, health talks, corporate wellness programs, dinners, nutrition workshops every quarter, just really thinking I had the business and the life that I wanted. And that first year of marriage was really stinking hard with all of that stuff going on.
So you were running the practice and she was still in school?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, in chiropractic school. So
right.
I was growing the practice and she had started school in Dallas. And when she moved, she transferred to the school here in Houston and then continued. So those first 2.5, almost 3 years that we lived together, she was in, full-time school, clinic, all that kind of stuff. And I was, rocking and rolling as a solo provider in my office. So yeah, the daughter, that's where I started this is where I'm going to land the plane here. So thought I had it all figured out.
You did that for a few years, clearly, that hustle and that grind, so to speak, of.
Yeah. The first 3 years. Yep. It was, that's when I actually pivoted, from solo private practice and, integrated my clinic, which was, about that 3-year mark, and then ran that clinic for almost 3 years as well. But that transition took place around the time that my daughter was born. And the second that, I was in a position where I actually wasn't in that high volume practice anymore. And I wasn't actually seeing the patients on a day-to-day basis. I was just running it. But, my wife had just started practice and she had taken, she had planned to take, 6 weeks off when really it needed to be more like 8 or 10. Mm-hmm. And we didn't realize that at the time. And I luckily had 6 weeks, where I didn't have to go to the clinic at all. And in those 6 weeks, everything just changed in terms of perspective when I realized, what the heck am I doing? And now that I have this precious little thing sitting here, well, most of the time screaming at me, not knowing what to do as a first-time dad, I'm like, none of that other stuff really matters anymore. And just something changed to where my perspective shifted. It's like, okay, what are we doing and why are we doing it? And my wife and I kind of had a come to Jesus moment. And she looked at me one night as we were, switching shifts. And she's like, I need you to be healthy for this family. Before it was just me, but now it's us. And that's when just mountains started to move and trajectory started to change. And my perspective just shifted to, putting myself first in terms of my own health. And then, focusing on being the best husband and dad that I could be, which I have no idea how I'm doing on a daily basis with that stuff, but you just kind of figure it out as you go, right?
So I should interview your wife at some point.
She's great. She would love it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, honestly here, your wife, loving, cared about you, realized and both of you together, when your daughter was born, thought, okay, is this all that life is about? Mm-hmm. Is what I'm hearing. Yep. By the sounds of it, success was easy. I mean, hard work, right? But you had a busy practice, high volume, you likely had the resources that go along with that. So you had the trappings of success, so to speak, that some people would want and would dream of. And yet you realized, what am I doing this for? And is this making me happy? And is this what I actually want?
1,000%. It's amazing to say. It was we built a $1 million clinic and I didn't want it anymore. I was just someone please take this from me or show me how to do this without me being the only person grinding day in and day out. We had an amazing team, not to take anything away from the clinic. It was amazing. The impact, the testimonials, the results, but Yeah, once the focus shift to getting my health back and then being there for my wife and my new family, it completely changed the perspective where I was like, I don't need this. I need simplification. I need to regain some of that control again. And yeah, we started to kind of move away from me being in private practice. And yeah, it's been a few years now, but it's been a blessing in disguise.
Well, as one of the, easiest and hardest questions, I often ask clients is, what do you actually want? And it sounds, oh, okay, well, I want this. No, no, no. What do you really want? Because a lot of people have the things they think they're supposed to want. And then they realize, again, their relationships aren't what they want to be. Their time is spent doing tasks and having responsibilities that they don't really love. And their health is not where it wants to be. Even as healthcare professionals, we know the things we should be doing. So, I'm glad that you had that epiphany, that awareness, that moment where you're like, something's got to shift, because it's launched you into a whole different career that is, your story infuses all of this. You're still using all your skills as a chiropractor. Maybe not your adjusting skills, right? But you're using your skills and your knowledge, and you've taken that to transform people's lives in a whole different way. So let's talk about how your health, you started fasting, I'm guessing, and had some success with it, started learning about it. And now you've launched that into the Fasting for Life program.
Yeah, that's really that's exactly what's happened. Unbeknownst to me in the process, it's always hard to see the picture when you're inside of the picture frame. But we started the transformation process, and again, thanks to my wife for the loving nudge and the realization of like, yeah, this, you say you're happy, but this isn't really. I'm not feeling it. Like, where's the guy that 6 months ago, a year ago, 3 years ago? So the transition happened because of my health journey and my struggle. And the reason I became a chiropractor was because I was a sick kid with a bunch of asthma and allergies and all this stuff. And once I started going to a chiro, I started breathing better. I was able to start playing sports again, and my life just transformed as a 12-year-old. So I knew at 12 years old that I wanted to go into the chiropractic profession, and my guidance counselor didn't even know what a chiropractor was when I went to her in high school. So I had to navigate that pretty much on my own. And then I got into the profession, and I was like, there's so much more that I want to be doing in terms of global impact when it comes to health because of my experience. So chiro brought me the principle and the philosophy that, health comes from within and not an outside-in approach, which was the medical system that I grew up in. My parents didn't know any better. They're amazing. They worked so hard, provided us with so many opportunities, me and my two sisters. But like from a health perspective, we just followed the status quo. And I am like anti-status quo guy. Like I need a tattoo like that just says that somewhere in some hieroglyphic or, something that like is like, that is me. That is, I buck the system. Even as a kid, coming home late after dark, I would always push back on my dad and try to like navigate and like move my way around. Like I do not like the status quo. So when it came to the health care in this country and the health that I had as a kid, I realized that there was another way. So I became a chiropractor, and love the fact that profession embodies the chiropractic principle and message that you have control of your health. It's not an outside-in approach. It's not, having doctors and a healthcare team for the majority of people is 90 to 100% of that comes from the outside-in approach. People don't know that their body is designed to heal and that you just need to remove the interference and give it an opportunity to do so. So taking that message, knowing that message, and then failing in my own health was like a slap in the face. Taking people, hundreds of people, through challenges every single year, and they'd lose weight and their blood works would improve, and we get these testimonials. And year after year, my life insurance premium was going up because my numbers were getting worse. And I had all the resources, all the knowledge, the nutrition background, the metabolic testing, tens of thousands of dollars of testing. We had an FDN, a functional diagnostic nutritionist who worked in our clinic, who's become a friend over the years, who helped me start to navigate. And I really found out that I was on the path to become what ran in our family. This is an audio medium, so you can see me do the air quotes, but nobody else can. That I was on the path to become my dad and his brothers and my grandparents, my two grandfathers, who passed away with preventable health related issues. My dad literally was a severe diabetic on insulin, and I just saw myself turning into that And it was that frustration of like, I know the principle, I know what is going on here. And fasting was I don't want to say the magic pill, but fasting was the magic aha that gave me the realization that, oh, I can fix this. And I was looking at it, teaching it from the right perspective, but putting it into action or implementing it with the outside in approach. So once those two worlds merged, I realized that, whoa, we've got something here. And then Tommy's story aligned with my story in a way. And we just started talking into a microphone. And then in the last 12 months, we built out, a new business. And it's just crazy. Like in one given week, I could have 500 conversations with a patient. Now I turn the podcast on and we're getting thousands of downloads a day. And it's like, wait a minute, we're reaching so many more people with the principle of you have a choice. Your health is your responsibility. Let us show you some of the tools that we use to get ourselves well and get our life back. And the response has just been incredible.
Well, I love that you're using, I've often thought very similar to you. I'm like, I think that giving someone a chiropractic adjustment is like one of the most powerful health interventions on the planet, hands down. However, our philosophy of health comes from inside the body. Your body is a dynamic organism that needs positive energy, good food, a movement, sleeps, like stress. Like if we can get that message and that philosophy that you have the ability to create good health, that health comes from within the body, not from outside sources, that's a shift that we need to see more of. So I love that you're taking that and sharing with people. And your podcast is not a small podcast right now. I want to congratulate you on the success of it because you guys have put a lot of heart and soul into it. But what's I know you broke 100,000 downloads. I think your number is higher than that now.
So we're on episode 56 and we just hit 230,000.
Awesome. So listeners, you're going to want to check this out. If fasting is something that you've done personally, if it's something that you definitely think your patients could benefit from, you guys have poured a lot of energy into teaching people the ins and outs of how fasting works, why it's important, but also removing some of the myths and some of the inconsistencies with information out there, right?
1,000%. I mean, it's like you've listened to all of our episodes. That's our message. It's like we failed so many times over and over. Like Tommy has a pre-med background, a master's in physiology. I have my chiropractic degree plus my undergrad in nutrition and biology. And we have all this knowledge and two of us couldn't figure it out on our own. And we're like, all of a sudden, once we started using the concept of insulin resistance and insulin friendly lifestyle, putting it through the framework that you just stated so perfectly, that there's misconceptions. You're looking at the wrong rate limiting step. You're looking at the wrong angle. You're looking at it from, okay, here's the problem. Let me treat the problem. Just like in our profession, you're not treating the pain, you're treating the underlying issue. And the underlying issue for so many people in today's world due to marketing, standard medical practices, standard food practices, standard food recommendations, all of that stuff combined, we're seeing this huge, massive uptick where by 2030, they're saying 50% of the population will be obese, meaning a BMI over 30 in the United States. And I know you're, just north of us here, but I feel like there might be some trends, some similarities.
Absolutely.
And then almost 72% of the population is overweight in the United States. And they're doing it wrong. I was doing it wrong. I was teaching it wrong to my patients back in the day, which was a real hard lesson to learn. Why aren't the results sticking? Where is that missing piece? So we really try to frame it through, let us remove the hurdles, remove the sticking points, remove the myths, base it on science and lifestyle design, and then get you the wins within 10 days. It takes us 10 days to get you some wins and have some aha moments where you're like, oh, wait, now I can take fasting and use it as a tool to regain my health, and I have complete control. And that's our whole thing, is we want to get people those wins and that encouragement and that ability to regain their control through simply looking at when they're eating. It couldn't be more simple. And it was like such an aha moment back in the day when it became clear.
Mm-hmm. So did you have a time when you were overlapping, when the fasting for life became sort of your side hustle and you were still in private practice, or did you leave private practice and start this?
Yeah, I was out of private practice when we started the fasting for life. It was conceptually the
That must
fall
have
of
been scary.
19.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my wife was very supportive. When I closed my office and shut down my management and my medical company that I had here, and then my chiropractic office was a subset of that. It was a 90% pay cut. So as the provider, my wife's just starting her business. We had a son in there too, so there was some
Yeah.
maternity leave and a coverage doc for her office and a new
Yeah.
office location, and we moved the entire clinic in one Friday and Saturday when I decided to shut it down at the end of 2018. And didn't really know where we were going, but thank God for her support and her being like, no, go do, like, you need to do this. You need to do something, like, just go figure it out. And thankfully we've stumbled upon this new path and this new business, and it's so much fun.
Well, let's be real. Like, being willing to take a 90% pay cut had to be a little scary.
Yeah,
And,
just when you say it, I'm like, I get goosebumps.
well, look, there's lots of docs listening. We're recording this. It is January 20th, 2021. And a lot of docs in 2020 have had to shift their business. A lot of docs have dealt with uncertainty. A lot of docs have made massive gains in their practices. And a lot of docs are looking to expand or maybe use their skills in a different way. And they're not really sure what to do, or they're also terrified of making a change. So my question for you would be, for docs listening, how did you get through that fear? Yes, you had a really amazing supportive partner, but still, as Dr. Scott, you must have been scared. And how did you get past that and still charge ahead?
Yeah, man, that's a question. That's a monster. That's a monster of a question. It really, it's a process. So one of the things that we, even in our fasting programs, is like, don't focus on the big end goal, because creating that, huge clinic that I had didn't happen overnight. It took 80 to 90 hours a week for however many, the first 18 months, and then 60 to 80 hours a week for the next 18 months, and learning actually how to, pay taxes and send in facility licenses and all that kind of stuff. You have no idea what you're doing. I just wanted to help people, so, like, coming from that and learning along the way, it was a process to build it. So just like the transformation that took place from the transition from out of practice, to being completely digital and remote, I've always had guides along the way. So Donald Miller, Story Brand, Business Made Simple, he always talks about the hero's journey. And then, that I was always looking for support. And it started with me just doing a lot of introspection. Simon Sinek's Start With Why, Find Your Why, different coaches along the way, different paths, just always looking and asking for support or direction from the people that were doing what I wanted to do. So it started with a lot of the initial realization of, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, well, now what? Turned into, okay, we're okay for a little while, but now it's time to, like, make stuff happen. And then just keeping connected to a group or a coach, and I can't list them all that I had over that 3-year period. But I built my practice with coaching. All the times that I've been successful in business, it's been with a coach. So I've always had that to rely on. So for docs that are listening that, I've just gone through 2020, and depending on where you live and what the regulations are and what your ability to actually practice your craft and, provide for yourself and your family, it's always tough in that moment, because I've been in 3 different transitions in my businesses. From solo chiro to integrated to just running the practice and not actually being in it, seeing patients, and through all of those transitions, just like the one from practice to out of practice, there's this what am I trying to say here? There's this priority conundrum, this catch 22 of the principled chiro, this catch 22 of any provider, where, most people that go into the healthcare industry want to help people. But the thing is that like your service, like your time and energy and mindset and, emotion, emotion that goes into trying to help somebody, for me being empathetic in nature, that drained me through the years of seeing so many patients. The problem is then if you don't do it or you can't find somebody to do it the way you do it, then you're stuck. So to answer your question and to land the plane is encouraging someone who's sitting there going, yes, I have this passion project, or I don't have a passion project, but I want to pivot. I want to increase my time value, my time money equation, right? Trading time for money, is setting clear, distinct outcomes, but then coming back from that outcome and just putting in the daily little tiny things you can do that you don't have to think about. And really honing in on making sure that this end goal over here that's a priority doesn't get lost in the day-to-day dirty details of operations in your own clinic. Because then 5 years go by and you're like, oh yeah, I still haven't written that course, or oh yeah, I still haven't done the email campaign, or oh yeah, I still really need to brand myself, or it just gets lost in the noise because it's not something in the immediate intentional moment that you're in when you're taking care of patients. So then it gets kind of pushed down the priority list. So really envisioning what you want that to look like, and then working it down into literal, like, just, if you're trying to write a book, it's 100 words a day. Like, get up and do that first thing in the morning before you do anything else. Like, just trying to put in some type of system rather than relying on the decision making and the emotional component of trying to get those things done to make that transition, whatever that looks like, whatever that new endeavor is that you want to do. You have to have a system there to rely on it, because your willpower, your emotions, your feelings in the moment are always going to go back to what's more comfortable. And you're just going to stay stuck. And I'm speaking from experience over 3 different times of having transitions like this. I finally just got to the point where I'm like, no, I'm ripping the Band-Aid off. And Darren Daly's been a huge influence for me. Darren Hardy, excuse me. You can get his Darren Dailies that come to your email every day. He's got some really cool frameworks for like Sunday planning your week, like daily action. And it's just like these 3 to 5 minute videos that hit your email every day. And I've been relying on him for probably the last 18 months. And it's just been really cool. But that system is what allows you to transition out, or else you're never going to transition.
So it's almost like, you said, like, don't focus on the end goal, like have your vision and your dream and the goals that you want for your life, but don't let it distract you from the day-to-day being present and taking small steps. Because if you're only focusing on, I got to hit this volume, I got to hit this number financially, then you could be missing out on your health, on your relationships, on all the other pieces of it. So I like what you
on
just
the
said
opportunity. There. Yeah, for sure. All those other important opportunities. I had to expound on that. I had a pastor who was a patient, not the one who married my wife and I both times, another one that I'd become kind of close with over the years. And he actually just walked up to me one day and handed me a book. And he said, I know you're not in ministry, but you kind of are, because you minister to people every single day in these adjusting bays. He's like, so this was written by a pastor, and I want you to read this book. I think you could use it. He goes, I don't know, I woke up in the middle of the night, your name popped in my head. I saw the vision of the book. Here it is. And this is really cool. He runs a small church out in Simonton, which is like country. Like, we live in Texas, like 25 minutes outside of Houston. So it's kind of country, but it's not really country. Like, we're talking like country. Like, he runs a church way out in the middle of a pasture, right? And just a really great guy, really great family. I've known him for years. And he walked in, he handed me this book called Leading on Empty. And it was written by a pastor for pastors. And I sat down and I read it cover to cover. And then I realized, like, whoa, like, that's me. And it talks about, the main takeaway is the 5%. So anyone can write emails. Anyone can go to school and learn a degree, get a degree and learn a trade, right? Anyone can go to trade school and start a business. Like, you can, especially YouTube now, you can go on and do anything, right? Like YouTube University, you can learn anything. So that's all the 95% of the stuff. The 5% is what only you can do. And for me, it resonated because it was my health. It was how I show up in my marriage and my relationships, and it was my spirituality. And those are the only three things. That's the 5% rule. So any decision I make, I always start with the 5% rule first. And then I go ahead and handle all the other stuff.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, my last question for you is, before we get to my last question, I like what you just shared. Listeners, I hope you took note of all that. I mean, look, we had Dr. Scott, busy, high volume practice, rocking it, had a baby, realized that, his health wasn't where he wanted it to be. His relationship was solid, but, that could have been improved. And basically said, I need to make a shift here. And you did some introspection. You found some great mentors and coaches. You took a massive risk and closed your brick and mortar practice and had some time to figure out what you wanted to do next, launched a whole new business alongside, great mentorship and coaching and all the reasons you already had as a professional. And you're sitting back here looking at like 2020 wasn't so bad for you, right? Like you had great success with your business. Your health is better than it's ever been. I'm guessing your relationship is stronger, how you show up as a dad. You've had some shifts as a human being because of the risks that you took, right? And because of your story. And I mean, obviously we talk a lot on the show about setbacks and challenges being opportunities for growth. And I want to commend you for making shifts in your life many times to actually get to who you are, what you want to do, and how can you best help people.
Well, I appreciate that. And by no means do I have any idea or anything figured out in totality.
You find me someone who does.
Yeah,
I want to interview them.
Yeah, 2020, if that taught us anything, is control what you can control, right? So my wife and I have been very, very blessed this year. Her practice grew by 40%. And we have this new business and just, it's all like, we're very wired the same way where regardless of the setback, I mean, heck, I had to file a Chapter 7 for my management company at one point in 2019. Like never thought I'd ever have to do that before. Like talk about a setback, $1 million clinic with nothing to show for it. It's like, what the heck? Where have I gone wrong? And I was at a seminar once, Keith Cunningham seminar. Great guy, amazing business trainings. He does a 4-day MBA workshop, a big old Texan. And he's just like a genius about being able to teach you an entire MBA program in 4 days. It's incredible. But he said at one point, I was in a room. I was the minnow in the room, by the way, the smallest fish. And we were sitting there on day one. And so he opens a seminar and there's about 50 or 60 business owners in there. And he says, all right, who in this room has done a business deal that's lost them $500,000? Who in this room has done a business deal that's lost $1 million? Who in this room has done 10 million, 20 million, 50 million? And he and one other person raised their hand. And in that moment, I realized, wow, I have no idea what I'm doing in my business. I'm so glad I'm here, but it also gave me the perspective that doesn't matter. Like the guy who lost 50 or the guy who's teaching the seminar that did it, that doesn't matter. It's the intention behind it. It's why are you doing it? It's are you enjoying it? And that number really isn't anything to worry about or stress about. So the transitions I feel like have only fueled my fire more to be like, well, I've done it twice, 3 times. Let me go do it again. But let's create what I want this time rather than being stuck in a position where I just don't feel 100%, So it's just interesting, throughout the years as the perspective has changed, but I have no idea. I mean, we're just turning on the microphones. We're creating stuff. We're putting value out there. We're supporting our listeners and we're getting some feedback. So just got to try stuff, just got to, I mean, how are you going to know? Like, I didn't know I was going to end up here. I had no idea. So, that whole, like, you got to find passion. Well, no, passion comes from action. Like just start doing stuff. And eventually you're going to find the stuff that you love to do and you resonate and it makes you vibrate. And then there's the stuff that you don't love to do. Like, yeah, you have to, but no one likes budgeting, but you got to do it, right? If you want to have any control of your finances. What I mean is like the real meat, like you as long as you have that thing you can anchor to that you love to do more of the stuff that makes you vibrate and less of the stuff that you don't want to do. And just, I mean, even just start there. You're going to do that consistently for 6 months. You're going to be in a whole different position.
Amen. And I want to thank you because this is my first recording my first interview of the year, but also the back in production. Because listeners, if you don't know that I have a second podcast now, Work, Play, Hustle, Heal, went into production of that in the fall. So I haven't been doing any interviews, and I want to thank you because I'm fired up. I'm so excited to be talking to docs again. I have 2 more interviews today, about 8 more in the next 2 weeks. And you've reminded me of my passion for having these really inspiring. I get inspired with every interview that I do. And I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for inspiring me. Listeners, you want to check out what Dr. Scott Watier is working on with Fasting for Life. Be sure to check out the show notes and the links and connect with him if you had any other questions. My last question for you, how do you define success for you now?
Oh, you saved the best for last.
I know we're running out of time here.
Did you hear that? I know. Did you hear that guttural, like, ugh?
One sentence.
Say one sentence. How do I define success?
What does success mean to you? It can be a word.
Yeah, impact.
Impact. So you measure your success not so much in your bank account, in material items, but how much of a ripple effect your life can have on others. There, I said it for you.
You did. How many of those emails and those comments and those messages that we get that say that, thank you, you've helped me through a tough time, or you've saved me through 2020. And we don't do it for that. You know, like we did it because it helped us and we want to go help other people. But like getting those messages and seeing the numbers and seeing the response is really where the impact lies for us. And I mean, as you know, building digital stuff is not easy. It's very time and energy intensive, but I mean, yeah, impact was the word that's been kind of on the tip of my tongue and in the forefront of my cortex here for a while now. So yeah, I think that would be the most succinct way to say it without going down a rabbit hole, because that's a pretty loaded question. Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for the impact that you're making on the lives and the health of people across the world. And thanks for your time again today.
I appreciate you so much, Melissa. Thank you so much. Appreciate your mentorship and the opportunity today. So thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.